Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And welcome for a session that is so new to the program. We didn't have a chance to advertise it in the official program. But as all of you have gathered here today, you know that this is an exceptional time that we find ourselves in. And so we very much look forward, the Global Wind Energy Council, WindEurope and RWE look very much forward to this session on the Ukraine wind energy situation. This session will touch on the development of wind energy in the Ukraine before the brutal invasion of Russia, what's happening now on the ground and what's coming afterwards. And to host the session, I'd like to introduce the chairman of the Ukrainian Wind Energy Association, Anдрій Konečenkov. Andrei.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear wind community, good day. We meet here today to talk about Ukraine, about its wind sector. Let me introduce myself. My name is Андрій Конеченков, chairman of the board, Ukrainian Wind Energy Association. At the outset, I would like to take this chance to express to gratitude WindEurope and Global Wind Energy Council for giving us the opportunity to conduct our today's workshop devoted to Ukraine. And of course, I wish to thank our good friends, Polish Wind Energy Association, and personally Janusz Gajewecki, its head, Polish Wind Energy Association, for their help and support when we had to flee from Ukraine. We greatly appreciate your support and help. I'd like to start our today's workshop with a short video about one of the wind farms located in Ukraine, in beautiful Kherson region. This region, which is now under occupation Russian of aggressor. Please video. This wind farm was built in 2 years ago. This is used modern wind turbine Vestas 3.6 megawatt. Only without, I don't hearing music and without music, without speech, sorry, this technical problem. Kherson region, this is second place in Ukraine for wind development. Now Kherson region have around 330 megawatt installed capacity, and plan in this year plus 150 megawatt. Okay, let's start. Next.
We would like to show that wind energy could realistically long-term in Kherson region actually compete with traditional energy without having any specific price benefits or subsidies from the government. Well, one of these wind turbines is producing about 3.6 megawatt. That would mean about, let's say, 100 houses. In this place, we plan 40 turbines. Let's say in that ballpark figures, that would mean that we could provide electricity for up to 4,000 houses. Wind energy can compete with traditional energy. That's from a price perspective. From a price perspective, we believe that we can, in a couple of years, actually compete on the same terms. But of course, as a bonus for the country, as a bonus for the environment, is that we are not doing any harm to the atmosphere. You will have the fact that we are a green energy as a bonus.
Thank you. Please open presentation. Ukraine has made significant renewable energy progress in the recent years, but the war has changed our plans. As you know, on the 24th February, Putin launched an invasion of Ukraine. Russian aggression unleashed an unprovoked and unjustified war against my country, Ukraine. Today is the 41st day of the full-scale war waged by Russia against my country. Today, Ukraine is the focus of attention to the entire world. Ukraine defends the European values, freedom and independence, life and peace, defends the free world. Ukraine has become a byword to bravery and courage. Together with Galina Šmidt, our board member, we will present the status of the Ukrainian wind power sector before, after, and after February 24, the day the war began. Please, Galina. I am also pleased to introduce Peter Gish, founder of Ukrainian Power Resources, which project development and investors. Unfortunately, due to war, our other speakers have not been able to come to Bilbao, so will be with us online. And please, Peter Chopek, Polish Wind Energy Association, our friends, this is same together with presentation, will discuss about Polish-Ukrainian platform. Before we start to discuss our main topic, I'd like to give some information on Ukraine. On 1st January 2022, the total population of Ukraine was estimated to be 41.2 million people, excluding the Autonomic Republic Crimea and Sevastopol, which were annexed by Russia in 2014. Ukraine is the second largest country by area in Europe. Ukraine has abundant mineral resources including oil, natural gas, coal, biomass potential, hydro. With its considerable population and high energy consumption, it is one of Europe's largest energy market. Ukraine has excellent wind power resources to ensure the development of large wind projects. More than 7,000 square kilometers of territories can be used for wind development. I am pleased to give a floor to Galina Šmidt to give general description of the sector of Ukraine. So, Galina, where was power sector of Ukraine by the end of 2021?
Total installed capacity of national power sector reached 56.11 gigawatt as of the end of 2021. Here you see a structure of electricity production in Ukraine. The majority of Ukraine's energy comes from fossil fuels and nuclear. All the figures mentioned in my presentation are relevant for the end of 2021. Nuclear power share in national electricity generation exceeded 55%, coal and natural gas accounting for 29.2%, hydro for 6.5%, while renewables accounted for 8.1%. As you see, Ukraine is heavily dependent on nuclear energy. There are 15 reactors in the country with total capacity of 13.8 gigawatt. The issue related to lifetime extension of nuclear power units is a cornerstone of future secure nuclear generation. Thus, lifetime of 9 nuclear power units has been already exceeded for 10 years, while another 3 nuclear units have been extended for 20 years. This graph shows the timeline for decommissioning nuclear reactors in Ukraine based on the year of expiration of their lifetime. The total installed capacity of thermal power plants in Ukraine amounted to nearly 30 gigawatt. Much of the coal-fired plant is old. 52% of thermal power plants have been in operation for more than 60 years already. Along with the high emissions of greenhouse gases in the environment, they are costly to run due to high maintenance costs and low efficiency. According to the National Plan for Emission Reduction from Large-Scale Burning Plants until 2033, Ukraine is obliged to upgrade or shut down a significant part of its thermal generation capacities. At the United Nations 26th Climate Conference in Glasgow, Ukraine has committed to phase out coal by 2035. Hydropower, with a total installed capacity of 6.3 gigawatt, plays a vital role in the energy mix of Ukraine, providing flexibility to the grid. In 2016, the government approved a program for hydropower development aimed at increasing installed generation capacity by 3.3 gigawatt and raising hydro shares in electricity generation to 15.5% by 2026. With respect to renewable energies, I am pleased to say that Ukraine has demonstrated a good progress in developing renewable power sector over the last several years. Renewables have become one of the priorities of the government because of its potential to reduce natural gas dependence and enhance energy security and independence. Ukraine has set a goal of reaching 25% share of renewables in its total energy mix by 2035 and 25% in electricity generation by 2030. In the period between 2018 and 2021, the installed renewable capacity in Ukraine increased almost 4 times to 9.6 gigawatt by the end of 2021. This figure also includes PV installations for households. Almost 1.2 gigawatt of renewables capacities were added in 2021. Feed-in tariff, known as a green tariff in Ukraine, is currently the main state support mechanism for renewable energy. The green tariff was introduced on April 1st, 2009, and is valid until 31st of December 2029. Due to a very attractive feed-in tariff in solar electricity, the most dynamic sector of renewable in Ukraine remained solar. In 2021, electricity generated from renewables reached 8.1%, made up of 60% by solar, 30% by wind, almost 8% by biomass and biogas, and 2% by small hydro. I'd like to know that on the 11th of May 2021, for the first time in the history of Ukraine, daily electricity generation from renewables exceeded the thermal generation. Andrei, could you give please us a short information on wind development in Ukraine?
Thank you, Galina. Almost 359 megawatt of wind capacity were added in 2021, bringing the cumulative total 1,673 megawatt. This slide shows a map of wind power plant in Ukraine. So far, we have 34 wind power plants operating in Ukraine. There are 4 main regions in south of Ukraine where about 88% of wind generation is local, namely Zaporizhia, Nikolaev, Kherson, and Odessa region. This region has the best wind resource in our country. Today, Ukraine green electricity generated 699 wind turbines, 16% of which are locally manufactured. Vestas remains its leading position in the Ukrainian wind power market, accounting for 40% wind turbines operating in the country. This slide shows growth dynamics of the national wind power sector. Between 2014 and 2017, the wind power market was in stagnation due to Russian annexation of Crimea and occupation of some territories in east of Ukraine. A big leap forward was taken in 2019, since the market expected the introduction of auctions in 2020. More than 3 billion euros have been already invested in the wind project in Ukraine. I am pleased to give the floor to Peter Gish to share his experience in working in Ukraine. Please, Peter. Next. Yes. Please photos, Peters. Yes.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you, everyone. I thought I'd share with the audience today my experiences developing wind projects in Ukraine. Before 2017, I had never gone to that country. And what I found was quite extraordinary. There are vast, vast agricultural fields, windswept plains, an incredible solar resource, and a national commitment to renewable energy. And when we started working in 2017, we decided to focus just one small area of the country near Odessa. We decided to focus only on wind power. And I'd been developing wind power for almost 25 years, starting in Italy, moving to North America, going to Asia, China, and the Philippines. then to North Africa, Morocco, and Tunisia, and then ended up in Eastern Europe. And I'd never seen such a beautiful country ideally positioned for wind power development. I have a couple of photos of the first project we built in partnership with Elementum, the renewable energy subsidiary of VR Capital. They were fantastic partners in terms of the completion of the development and then executing a project during the pandemic. And I was struck as we were building this project in 2020 with all sorts of restrictions around how we were going to get about the work, how the local population participated. The farmers, the village mayors, the local inhabitants were very, very supportive of our work. We'd prepared the path correctly. We'd had a lot of interaction with them before starting construction. But it was, again, one of the most pleasant markets I've ever worked in. So when I look at the situation today, I first of all have difficulty understanding, like most Europeans, why we're back here again. It's an extremely poignant moment in history. It's also about a bigger battle, in my opinion. The battle right now is for the sovereignty of Ukraine and its choice to go forward with renewables. But this battle is also about oil and gas and the larger challenges we face on this planet. So in conclusion, I just want to emphasize that the experience we had in Ukraine until the events of last month had been very positive. We'd worked very well with the local communities. There was real leadership around what we were trying to do in the renewable space. It's one of the best countries for wind power I've ever seen, and I hope that very soon we're back at work. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, very much. I'm pretty sure for many our today's guests it was interesting to learn how to work in Ukraine. We expect to have 1 gigawatt of new wind capacities to be commissioned in Ukraine by the end of this year, and much more after 2022. However, the war has changed all our plans. I want to pass a word back to Galina to describe the situation in the energy sector of Ukraine after the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the impact it is having.
It's hard to talk about Russia's invasions of Ukraine. From the very first hours, Russian troops are deliberately targeting our cities and towns, civilian infrastructure. They kill our people. They kill our children. They destroyed cities to the ground. They destroyed power plants. They destroyed distribution gas networks. That's why many people are left without heating and in many cases without electricity and water supply. They destroyed mobile operator towers for people not to have any contacts with their relatives and friends. They bomb warehouses and stores. People must starve. They rape and torture civilians. This is a true genocide against Ukrainians, and it is happening right now in the 21st century. We must stop it together and never let it happen again anywhere in the world. I want to show you a short film about Ukraine. This film was firstly broadcasted during our President Volodymyr Zelensky address to the United States House and Senate. One more stark example. As you know, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant were seized by Russian invaders. We all are afraid of a nuclear war, but we have to realize that Russians have already started it when it captures the Chernobyl and Zaporizhzhia power plants. Russia is acting as a nuclear terrorist. Zaporizhzhia power plant, with its 6 unit reactors, is the largest one in Europe. It also has an open-air spent nuclear fuel storage. As all of us know, no nuclear power plant is designed for war. If a site is accidentally shelled and the building which houses the nuclear reactor is hit, not only Ukraine, but Russia and Europe will suffer. The consequences will be worse comparing to Chernobyl nuclear power accident in 1986. Every day, we are balancing on the edge of nuclear disaster due to the Russian actions. Power energy sector of Ukraine is working now in extremely harsh conditions. Ukrainian energy professionals are doing a great job to keep our energy infrastructure functioning, and we are succeeding. As you probably know, on March 16, the electricity grids of Ukraine and Moldova were successfully synchronized with the continental European grid. In line with the scheduled test, the Ukrainian power system had to be disconnected from Russian and Belarusian systems exactly on the 24th of February, the first day of the war. Despite military aggression by Russia, rocket attacks on critical infrastructure, the Ukrainian power system, working autonomously, proved its reliability and security of electricity supply to consumers. Ukraine successfully passed this test. For more than 3 weeks onwards, Ukraine power system has managed to perform in a stable way. The network operates in synchronized mode with NTCOE, maintaining a 50 Hz frequency. Unfortunately, some of our renewable power plants have to be shut down. There are registered cases of destruction of wind turbines, solar panels, transformer substations, electric transmission lines. Russian invaders even steal equipment from the power stations. On the first day of the war, several wind turbines in Kherson region were hit by Russian missiles. But despite all the challenges, the wind sector continues to regularly pay taxes to the local and national budgets. Our companies financially support the armed forces of Ukraine and the territorial defense forces, pay salaries, and act as volunteers.
Thank you, Galina. I'd like to introduce next our speaker, Alexander Podprugin, as operating director, Elementum Energy Company with solar and wind capacities and operating in Ukraine. Alexander, what does it mean to operate and develop in wind farm during the times of the war? Please.
Yes, Andrei, thank you for introduction. I want to thank for invitation and for this great opportunity to speak here today. I also want to thank Peter Gish, our good partner, for his support and his warm words earlier today. I was happy to visit Copenhagen half a year ago on the previous WindEurope event. Unfortunately, this year I was not able to visit in person, but I'm happy to speak online. Just a few words about the company I represent. We are the Elementum is the largest international renewable producer in Ukraine. We own and operate 29 power plants in Ukraine with a total capacity of 576 megawatts, which are situated in different regions, in several regions in Ukraine. We are also now constructing our next project, 60 megawatt wind power plant in Odessa region, and we continue to develop the new projects and having a pretty big portfolio in development. On this slide, you can see, on this slide you can see a map with the battle zones of Ukrainian forces with Russian aggressor and temporary occupied territories and our assets in these zones. Out of total Elementum's capacity of 576 megawatts, 35 are currently situated on the occupied territory, and 347 megawatts were or are located in the active fighting zones. It means that our engineers, dispatchers, as well as our office colleagues work under frequent air raid sirens, spending many hours in the shelters. We endured much more than the enemy expected, more than 40 days instead of 3-4 days during which they planned to seize our entire state. But we are standing and we will win. In these circumstances, Elementum as the energy company does everything possible to sustainably supply energy in the homes of Ukrainians. But I would like also to express my separate respect to all of Ukrainian energy professionals who work on the occupied and seized nuclear plants, to TSO and DSO employees who fix grids in unrealistic conditions. With all that, Ukrainian system is still incredibly stable, but I'll talk about that a bit later. We as a company which is largely represented in Ukraine, part of our direct responsibilities, we are of course engaged in humanitarian aid activities now to support Ukraine and Ukrainians. As individuals and as a company, Elementum is collaborating with several entities in Ukraine that have established logistics into and throughout the country. The first shipment have already been secured and included medicine, bulletproof vests, and other critical supplies. We already donated more than $300,000 US, and we, of course, always encourage all of our partners to join our efforts. By these activities, we supported more than 12 local communities on the territories of our presence, those who are facing the dangers of the conflict zones as we speak now. Some of our colleagues decided to join territorial defense forces, and we as a company also supported them. Of course, and one of the main activities of all of our employees is volunteering now to support defense forces, vulnerable people in different regions all over Ukraine. Speaking about our operations in Ukraine now, of course, they were severely suffered by Russian invasion. As of 24th of February, when the full-scale invasion started, we were in the middle of construction of the second phase of our Dnistrovsky wind power plant. Our partner in this project, General Electric, had already delivered all of the components to the site, and all of the turbines were pre-installed. You can see those now on the slide. And 2 of turbines were fully erected and were ready for commissioning. Unfortunately, in spite of absence of Russian forces in the region of construction, invasion in the other sides of Ukraine forced GE to freeze further works. Today, we still do not have any certainty on when and how to resume the process. The operations and maintenance of existing wind power plants is even the worst problem. Even though our wind power plants are situated out of the fighting zone, OEM providers put on hold provision of O&M services which require their work on site. At the beginning of invasion, even remote services were put on hold. 20% of our turbines are stopped now as manual operations are needed. But today, jointly with GE, we try to find a solution that will allow servicing our park, as Ukraine needs wind energy now. As an example, after invasion, consumption in Ukraine had dropped significantly. Several nuclear power plants were under attack of Russian military criminals. Ukrainian TSO implemented different measures to stabilize the system, including huge curtailments for solar assets, while TSO's dispatchers asked and requested wind operators to continue production. And therefore, we feel our responsibility to remain assets under operation and double our efforts for that. Of course, Our key focus now is on safety of our employees and security of our power plants. According to requests of Armed Forces of Ukraine, Elementum's engineers carried out a set of measures to ensure security during the hostilities. As an example, some supplementary materials for construction were used to build fortifications in the region. And summarizing this part, we're convinced that we need to do as much as it's possible to retain our power plants generating in this complicated period. And now I would like to talk a bit about the future. Coincidentally, on the first day of full-scale invasion, and Andrei have already talked about that, Ukrainian energy system has been scheduled to isolate from Russian Federation and Belarus. It was planned to return to a synchronized mode with Russia and Belarus in 3 days, but their invasion prevented that, and Ukraine remained in isolated one until 16th of March. When it entered emergency synchronization with N3 after a 2-week operating in the system in full isolation and under Russian bombing and shelling. The synchronization with N3, which was only planned for 2023. Synchronization of the Ukrainian power system with European one has increased the resilience of power supply in Ukraine, as it has given us access to new sources of electricity. On the other hand, Ukraine can also propose a lot to our European colleagues. Today, Ukraine is a key for energy security in Europe, and I'm not afraid to talk about that. The events in Ukraine already drive further energy transition. We have no doubts that Ukraine will win. It's just a matter of time. And we need to triple our joint efforts to substitute Russia's fossil fuels already now. We are sure wind is the answer. The country's Ukrainian thermal power generation is already entering terminal decline and needs to be replaced by deployment of distributed renewable energy sources, energy storage, and digital solutions for flexibility. Ukraine has a huge renewables potential in different technologies, including wind, onshore, offshore, and can effectively push out Russia from the European energy market. One of the ways for reducing dependence from Russia is hydrogen. Ukraine is a potential hydrogen production partner for European Union, and as already mentioned, with huge renewables and especially wind potential, with high R&D capabilities, Ukraine has a potential to produce up to 10% of European hydrogen demand. Of course, today's challenges are the cost of green hydrogen, which makes project developers seek for external financing and incentives. Of course, transportation is a problem, but Ukraine has a solution for the last challenge. Historically perfect logistics through existing natural gas pipeline network, which needs modernization to be able to transport hydrogen instead of the natural gas from Russia. But this is a long-term solution. Elementum also develops a pilot hydrogen project which solves the transportation problem by using a perfect waterway through Danube. Our project is based on a hybrid technology of solar and wind, and we focus to make it sizable and in general to make it work. Of course, the main targets in the nearest future shall be detailing the roadmap for development of hydrogen infrastructure in Ukraine, establishing the mutual commercial connections with European off-takers, modernization of transportation and storage infrastructure within Ukraine. And this is one step. The second step is actually developing the Ukrainian market. Here I would like to make a small link with Andrei's and Galina's presentations and their insights. The existing Ukrainian renewables were mostly developed under a feed-in tariff support scheme. But as the state limited this support during last years, and we do not envisage the new assets to be commissioned without the new approach to be implemented. We in Elementum try to lead this transformation of the industry. Together with Peter Gish and his Ukraine Power Resources, we try to introduce a new model of market-based approach of development of the new wind capacities in Ukraine. With Peter's experience, with our knowledge of Ukrainian market, in this synergy, we expect our project to become a first corporate PPA in Ukraine. Our Limansky project is a 120 plus megawatt project, which we expected to reach COD in early 2024. And we hope as soon as the war ends, we will continue this work, as we do think that this is very important for Ukraine. As a summary, we encourage investors to join our efforts in Ukraine, as Ukraine needs more power. Europe needs more power. We totally understand that in Ukraine that we need more wind. Of course, we need Europe to support Ukraine, as Ukraine is fighting now for the world's and European sustainable future. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Alexander, very much. As you see, we do not give up. We continue to work, doing our best for the victory over the enemy, over the Russian aggressor. Currently, nobody could predict the exact day when the war ends. More than 4 million people have to flee from Ukraine to the EC countries, and the vast majority to Poland. Poland is doing its best to provide emergency care, assistance and support, as well as enabling long-term coexistence for refugees from Ukraine. To this end, the Polish Wind Energy Association and the Ukrainian Wind Energy Association have initiated a joint project, Work for Wind. With my great pleasure, I want to give a floor to our best friends, Polish Wind Energy Association. Please, Peter Chopik.
Thank you, Galina. I would like to just say a very few words about what we are doing, because maybe not every one of you knows that, but Galina showed the pictures of Ukraine, what is going on. And please imagine that since the 24th of February this year, more than 2.5 million Ukrainians flee from Ukraine to Poland to find security and help. And we try to help them as much as we can. We find their homes, but what's more, we need to find them jobs to feel that they are needed in Poland and that they can start a new life in Poland. So together with Ukrainian Wind Energy Association, we create a project which is called Work for Wind. We set up a webpage, workforwind.com, to all companies from wind sector, and maybe not only for wind sector, but for all companies that are placed in Poland, to help find Ukrainians a job in Poland and to start a new normal, if we can say so, life, yes, in Poland. So please join us in that. Please enter to that website. Please think about how we can help. If you are looking for employees in Poland, if you have your assets in Poland, please think about also giving a job to Ukrainian people who are looking for it and who want to start a regular life. It's not a normal situation, let me say that, because most of the Ukrainians that come to Poland are women and children. So we need jobs in which women can also work. So maybe, first of all, it will be a bit different that they're educated to, but let's give them hope. Let's give them together a chance for normal life. So please help us in it. Please enter workforwind.com website and think about how you can help us in finding the job for the Ukrainians that came to Poland. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. When you talk about the wind energy market, you always describe its prospect in future development. Today, it's difficult, I would even say impossible, to predict any figures on new wind power addition, but we will try. I am cordially invite Katerina Knish, Head Analytical Department, our association, to speak about the wind development in Ukraine when the war ends. Please, Galina. Please, Katerina.
Greetings from Ukraine. Do you hear me well? Andrei,
Yes,
do you
yes,
hear me?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
thank
yes,
you.
do hear it.
More than just an end to war. We want an end to the beginning of all wars. This is what Franklin Roosevelt, the most prominent and effective politician of the United States of the 20th century, said at once. This quote is more relevant today than ever for Ukraine, which was not only an end to Russia's genocide of the Ukrainian people, but also complete independence from Putin's influence and blackmails, political, social, economic, and of course, energy. The Ukrainian-Russian wars shows how important it is to be an energy independent nation and how important the role of renewable energy is. Not oil crisis, not climate agreements, and not the coronavirus, but the struggle of Ukrainians has brought renewable energy sources to a new stage of energy policy in Ukraine and Europe. With this war, wind energy got serious. Today, Russia has shut down more than 2/3 of Ukrainians' wind farms, but with the end of the war and the reconstruction of Ukraine, wind energy is being restored too. Earlier this year, we forecast that by the end of 2022, 1,000 megawatt of new wind power capacity will be added in Ukraine. We now understand that we may not have time to realize these indices, as the timing of this war is unknown. But we will definitely put into operation more than 4,000 megawatt of wind farms after 2022, which has already received a building permits. Ukrainians have resolved the impotence of energy independence. I am convinced that after the war, the Ukrainian government will set even more ambitious RES goals and will adopt a national action plan for renewable energy until 2030, which provides for the building of energy storages, maneuverable facilities, hybrid power plants, and hydrogen technologies. In addition, after this war, the government would finally review the RES support schemes and adopt the laws on feed-in premium, corporate PPAs, and guarantees of origin. The Ukrainian energy system is already a part of the European one. So after the war, the government will let the Ukrainian renewable energy market to the mechanisms and rules of the European market. The next slide, please. Unfortunately for Russia, as thanks to this war, Ukraine became even more open to foreign investment. Today, international investors have the opportunity to invest not only in the infrastructure of Ukraine, but also in such a new market direction as offshore wind energy. Today, the World Bank and the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine are working together on a feasibility study to be presented in May, while the Danish government agreed to support wind measurements in the Black Sea after the war. According to preliminary data, Ukraine has significant technical potential for the development of offshore wind energy, namely 250 gigawatt. Why is offshore wind energy attractive for investment? First of all, this is a completely uncovered market, which makes it possible to adopt new legal rules for the functioning of the sector and taking into account all the lessons learned from Europe. This is a direction that allows you to do successful business in the field of hydrogen energy, which today is also on the agenda of Ukraine and Europe. This is a market that provides an opportunity to strengthen Ukraine's energy cooperation with the countries of the Black Sea region. Next, please, slide. And Ukrainian Wind Energy Association made the first step, and together with Turkish Offshore Wind Energy Association, signed the protocol on initiating the Black Sea Offshore Wind Energy Federation. After the war, the parties will resume work on involving the wind associations of Romania, Bulgaria, and Georgia to this federation. With this war, wind energy got serious. It's still unknown today whether tomorrow will be safe for all of us or not because of the threat of a new nuclear catastrophe, which could have 10 times greater consequences than the Chernobyl disaster. Of course, Russia don't kill or rape Europeans physically as it's in Ukraine, but it has planted every European house and every enterprise on a gas and oil needle, which in turn creates another background for Russia to fund new wars in Ukraine. Therefore, this is not Ukrainian war. This is the war of each of you for freedom, for independence, for the safe life of the children, for clean air, and for peaceful dreams. Neither nuclear energy nor any other type of conventional energy should be considered alongside the concepts of sustainability, carbon neutrality, and environmental security. Unfortunately, we cannot end the war in Ukraine, but we can end another war, energy, primarily through the development of wind energy. Ukraine has resolved the importance of energy independence and security. And I'm very happy that we are not alone in this battle, that the whole Europe is with us, and the whole Ukraine is with Europe. Let's put an end to the beginning of all wars together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katerina. Thank you. Wind is vital for the peace. Wind is vital for Ukrainian electricity security. We work hard to deliver our wind goals, strengthen our energy independence. I hope, no, I am convinced that next year I will be able to present you our achievement in wind deployment in Ukraine. And finally, a few words about our activity. Every year, we publish Ukrainian wind power overview market. We also, as the first association in Ukrainian, which wrote and published in the Ukrainian book of wind energy for kids. Currently, the Ukrainian Wind Energy Association united 84 companies from 14 countries, including 100% of wind electricity producers in the country. Thank you very much for attention. Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine. And please, last videos.
Thank you very much. For those people that are